So last weekend on the channel, I did a video talking about the number 1 ranked transfer for every SEC team, and it did pretty well, so we're going to go ahead and do a part 2, this time talking about teams from the Big Ten. We're going to go through the number 1 ranked transfer for each and every Big Ten program, go through who they are, and how I think they will do. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's go ahead and get started and talk about the top transfer for each and every Big Ten team. Alright, so for the first team, we're going to talk about Illinois, and their top transfer was James Thompson Jr. He was ranked as the number 87 overall transfer in the 2025 portal, as he's now coming to Champaign by way of Wisconsin. Thompson was originally a 3-star recruit coming out of high school, as he went to Roger Bacon High School in Cincinnati, Ohio, and as I said, ended up going to Wisconsin. Thompson has been playing college football since 2021, and in total, he's had about 60 tackles and 5 sacks. He did not get a chance to play in 2024, but he still arrives at Illinois as one of the top transfers in the country, based mostly on potential. Up next, we're going to talk about the Indiana Hoosiers, and their top transfer was Fernando Mendoza. He comes in at number 22 in the 2025 portal rankings, as he's a 4-star quarterback transfer from Cal. Going back in time, he was only a 2-star recruit coming out of Columbus High School, and after a couple of Ivy League offers, he'd end up flipping to Cal at the last moment. Mendoza was seen as one of those guys that needed to develop over time, and finally at the end of the 2023 season, he got on the field. He passed for 1,700 yards with 14 touchdowns and 10 picks, and going into 2024, the Golden Bears knew they had their guy, and he delivered. He ended up passing for 3,004 yards, 16 touchdowns, and he also ran for 105 yards. He was also one of the more efficient players in the conference, despite not having great weapons or a great offensive line, and also, he was at Cal. After the season was over, he decided to transfer, and he now goes to Bloomington to take over for Curtis Rourke. He'll play for Curt Cignetti, and join his little brother Alberto Mendoza, who was on campus last year. Going across the Midwest to Iowa, their number 1 transfer comes in at number 93, and that is quarterback Mark Gronowski, who's a 4-star transfer by way of South Dakota State. Going back in time, Mark was only a 2-star recruit from Illinois and didn't have a ton of attention, so he ended up going to South Dakota State. But he would make a lot of teams pay, as he became arguably the best quarterback in the FCS over the last few years, as he had 1,600 yards as a freshman, 3,000 yards as a sophomore, 3,000 yards as a junior, and then this past season, 2,700 yards as a senior. The guy combined for nearly 10,000 yards, and he also had over 20 touchdowns in each of those years. On top of that, he was also an incredible runner, as he was a dual-threat quarterback for the Jackrabbits, won 2 FCS titles, and now comes to Iowa hoping to fix their quarterback woes. Gronowski is one of the most underrated players in the country in my opinion, but I know he was battling an injury, and we'll see how he can do this fall. For the Maryland Terrapins, they lost a couple of wide receivers last year, but their main get will be on the offensive line, as they grabbed the number 98 transfer in the country, Rawtrell Perry, a 4-star offensive tackle who came from Central Connecticut. At 6'7" and 323 pounds, Perry will 100% be a plug-and-play starter, as going back in time, he came out of the state of New York and was a 0-star recruit. Perry would end up at Central Connecticut, which is not exactly known as a powerhouse, but this past season he became a first-team all-conference player, and as I said, at 6'7", 323 pounds, he looks the par of a starting Big Ten lineman, and probably a guy who projects to the NFL. The Michigan Wolverines are not exactly known as a powerhouse when it comes to getting transfers, but this past season they grabbed the number 42 player in the portal, and his name is Justice Haynes. He was one of the top freshmen in college football a couple of years ago, but he's a 4-star running back from Alabama. After losing Kalel Mullings and Donovan Edwards, they need a new top-end running back, and Haynes definitely fits what they're looking for. Coming out of the state of Georgia, Haynes is one of the top running backs in the 2023 class, and as a freshman, he had 168 yards and 2 touchdowns. Last year, he would increase his role, carrying the ball 79 times for 448 yards and 7 scores, and now he'll arrive at Michigan as the primary running back. At least that's what I think. As they grab the number 75 transfer in the country in cornerback Joshua Eaton. Going back in time, Eaton was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school and was seen as one of the next great Oklahoma defensive backs. Unfortunately, Eaton would never really be able to make it work in Norman, as after 2 years he only had 6 tackles. He would transfer to Texas State for the 2023 college football season, and in the last 2 years, he's combined for 50 tackles, 13 pass deflections, and a sack. Michigan State definitely likes him because of his potential, because he's done well so far, and because he has plenty of experience. Sparty's desperately trying to get back on the map this year, and getting a guy like Eaton definitely helps. For the Minnesota Golden Gophers, they've been really solid at developing running backs the last couple of years, and they grabbed their next great guy out of the portal in A.J. Turner. Coming out of Life Christian Academy in Virginia, AJ was a 2-star recruit and the number 206 running back in his high school class, which put him behind the 8 ball. He ended up arriving at Marshall in 2022, and with the Thundering Herd, he was pretty incredible. Turner would have 100 yards as a freshman, 20 yards as a sophomore, and then this past year, he broke out. Turner ran the ball 104 times for 864 yards and 6 touchdowns, and also got 2 more passes out of the backfield. And overall, I think he was developing into a really good player. Minnesota decided to take a chance on him coming out of the portal, and Turner ranks as the number 144 player overall and a 4-star, right behind Miller Moss and Bo Pribula. I gotta admit, I think Nebraska got one of the best players in the 2025 transfer portal as they grabbed wide receiver Dane Key, and he comes from Kentucky. He was ranked as the number 34 overall transfer in this year's class, and going back in time, he was a near 5-star recruit at one point. He was an in-state guy from Lexington, and he decided to stay home and play for Kentucky. He also played alongside Berrien Brown, and in his 3 years, Key was really good. He had 37 catches and 6 touchdowns as a freshman, 42 catches and 6 touchdowns as a sophomore, and 47 catches and 2 touchdowns as a junior. His stats fell off this past year due to terrible quarterback play, but in total this guy had about 2,000 yards and over 120 catches. He has lots of potential, and I think he'll become wide receiver 1 for Nebraska immediately after they lost Isaiah Nayor to the NFL. This was a great pickup, and he definitely has NFL written all over him. As we all know, Northwestern is not exactly known for getting big-time transfer portal hauls, and this year is no different. The Northwestern Wildcats didn't get their first transfer until they got the number 405th ranked player this year in Griffin Wilde. Wilde was not very highly regarded coming out of high school and will be the second South Dakota State Jackrabbit on the list. Wilde was really solid over the last couple of years though, as in 2023 he had 20 catches for 399 yards and 6 touchdowns, and then in 2024 he broke out. He finished with 71 catches for 1,154 yards and 12 total touchdowns. Wilde might be one of the more underrated players in this year's portal as he brings really solid production, but not many people are talking about him. The Ohio State Buckeyes picked up a couple of key players in this year's transfer portal, but their top-ranked guy came in at number 17 as they grabbed Max Clair, a tight end from Purdue. Going back in time, Clair ended up going to the prestigious St. X High School in Cincinnati and was the number 48 tight end in his class and a 3-star recruit. Clair arrived at Purdue hoping to be the next great tight end to come through there, and in 2023, he caught 22 passes for 196 yards. This past season, despite a terrible offense and one of the worst teams in the country, Clair would catch 51 passes for 685 yards and 4 touchdowns. This was really solid for a tight end, and Ohio State has a ridiculous wide receiver room, but they needed a new starting tight end, and I think will be a really good tight end for them that will likely get drafted. The Oregon Ducks had the top transfer portal class in 2025, and it was headlined by Isaiah World. Going back in time, he was only a 2-star recruit who ended up having to play for Nevada. After starting a couple of years there, World now became one of the top players in the country, as the 6'8" offensive tackle is listed as a 5-star transfer and the number 2 overall player. He now comes to Oregon, who's had great success at developing offensive linemen, and he will definitely be asked to start and anchor this offensive line. Oregon 100% needed a guy like him, and currently he's a projected first-round pick. Sadly, the Penn State Nittany Lions have been lacking a big-time wide receiver the last couple of years, but they finally fixed it hopefully with their 2025 transfer portal haul as they grabbed Trevor Pena, a wide receiver from Syracuse. Pena is listed as the number 129 player in the country, which I think is ridiculously low, and after being a 3-star recruit in high school, Pena would arrive at Syracuse, where he's been really good for them. He didn't do much his first 3 years, but this past season with Kyle McCord and Fran Brown as the coach, he caught 84 passes for 941 yards and 9 touchdowns, becoming the top receiver on a really good pass-happy team. Pena decided to enter the spring transfer portal window, and apparently he wanted a ton of money, and Fran Brown let him walk. He will now head to Penn State, who desperately needs a good wide receiver 1 for the 2025 season, and I think they're getting that in him. He's going to be asked to do a lot, and he was a very impactful pickup for them. Purdue is now in their first year under head coach Barry Odom, and after losing pretty much every decent player to the transfer portal, he needed to grab a couple of impactful players, and the first guy he got was Ryan Turner. He was ranked as the number 264 overall transfer, and he's a corner that will come to Purdue from Boston College. Turner ended up actually being a pretty big recruit, as he would arrive at Ohio State back in 2022, but after having 3 tackles in just 2 years, he would transfer to Boston College ahead of the 2024 season, and last year, he'd have 13 tackles, 4 pass deflections, 1 sack, and a pick 6. He definitely made an impact for Boston College, but Purdue will be asking him to step up right away and lead their secondary, and we'll see how he does next year. Personally, I thought Nitro Tuggle was their best transfer, but I guess he wasn't ranked that high. I think Rutgers will be one of the worst teams in the Big Ten next year, but they grabbed a couple of big names out of the portal, and their first guy was ranked at number 155 in the country, and that was DT Sheffield, a wide receiver from North Texas. Going back in time, Sheffield was a 3-star recruit, and he came out of the state of Mississippi. He was originally at Washington State, but transferred to North Texas for the 2024 season, where he blew up alongside Chandler Morris at quarterback. Sheffield caught 66 passes for 822 yards and 11 touchdowns, and he definitely made the most of his new opportunity. He'll transfer to Rutgers and hope to be their top wide receiver this year, and I think he is a hidden gem. Going over to the West Coast, for the UCLA Bruins, their top transfer was Nico Imaliava. Obviously, he was the number 1 overall player in the portal. This is a huge get for them, as they just lost Ethan Garbers, who was an on and off starter for 2 years. Nico was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school and started last season for Tennessee, throwing for 2,600 yards and 19 touchdowns, while also leading the Volunteers to the college football playoff. The NFL scouts are in love with this guy. It's going to be interesting to watch. I don't personally like his attitude, and I thought he was a bit overrated last year, so while UCLA is getting the number 1 player in the portal, I don't think he should be ranked that high, but still, he should be good for UCLA and at least be entertaining to watch. In a make-or-break year for Lincoln Riley, he had a decent transfer portal haul, as their top guy came in at number 25 in Keyshawn Silver, a defensive lineman from Kentucky. Silver's been solid for quite some time now, and after originally being at North Carolina for 1 year, he has spent the past 2 seasons at Kentucky, where he's had nearly 50 tackles and 1 sack. Honestly, I don't necessarily understand the hype here, but I guess he projects as a big-time defensive lineman who, with the right coaching, could develop into an all-conference type player. We'll have to wait and see on him, but is there something I'm missing here? For our second to last team, we need to talk about the Washington Huskies, who are hoping to take a jump in year 2 under Jedd Fisch. They grabbed the number 32 player in this year's portal, as Jedd Fisch landed Tacario Davis, a corner from Arizona. You could probably easily put 2 and 2 together, as Tacario was a Jedd Fisch recruit at Arizona, and he became a star for them while he was with the Wildcats. Tacario ended up having an incredible 2023 season, in which he had 15 pass deflections and 25 tackles. He's one of the best corners in the country, but after a semi-disappointing 2024 campaign, he decided to enter the portal and follow Jedd Fisch. Davis still projects as one of the top corners in the country and has first-round pick written all over him, so this was a tremendous addition for the Huskies and should make their defense even better. And last but not least, for the Wisconsin Badgers, their top transfer was Tyrese Fearby, as he was ranked number 91 in the country, and he's an edge rusher from Kentucky. This is the second Wildcat on the list, and after coming out of Pittsburgh, he has spent 3 years for the Wildcats, and just like Keyshawn Silver, I'm not understanding the hype here. He has failed to register a sack in 3 years, has 1 pass deflection, and has a grand total of 21 tackles. Again, I am not a scout, but some of this stuff doesn't add up, and I'm not sure why this guy is ranked inside the top 100. I guess people think Wisconsin's getting a big get here. Who knows? So what do you guys think? What do you think of these transfers? And if you're a fan of a Big Ten school, who's the most underrated transfer from your team? Also, let me know what topic I could do next. And before you go, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and check out one of the videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.